This all happened when I was 20. I was renting a room in a share house with an older lady who was having issues with another tenant and decided to just scrap the whole thing and move. Unfortunately, this meant I had to find a new house to live in, and pretty fast. My aunt had a rental property that she was renting to two guys who were the sons of two different friends. One of them, Jack, was very charismatic and kind at first, and the other, Max, while friendly, was quite shy. They had a spare room. The rent was cheap. It was right across the road from my aunt, who was my mother figure at the time, and so once I met them, I decided I was going to move in. At first, everything was fine. I had never lived with guys before who weren't my brothers, and when you're 20, this seems like a pretty cool thing. Jack liked us to hang out like a family, so we often had dinners together, would watch TV, go to the movies, etc. Max was a little older than us, and as I said, quite shy. He was overweight and a self-described nerd, and you could tell in your first conversation with him that he had very little self-esteem. I went out of my way to be kind to him because I knew what it was like to be treated badly, and often gave him little pep talks and compliments when his friends were treating him bad. Unfortunately, this resulted in Max developing a little bit of a crush on me. One night, I was hanging out with my friend Evie after work, and he asked if we'd like to go out and get some dinner with him. We were like, yeah, sure, might as well. And we went out and had an okay time. Maybe a week or so later, I came home from work exhausted, so when he asked if I wanted to get dinner with him, I said no and went to my room to wind down. Maybe 2 hours later, Jack knocks on my door and asks if I know where Max is. I say no. He asked if I want to get some dinner, but I said no, and I thought he'd gone to his room this whole time. Jack says no, they don't know where he is. Finally, Max texts him and says he was upset and had driven to the top of a mountain lookout to do some thinking. Jack ends up getting really annoyed at this, asking why I couldn't have just gone to dinner with him. Why would I have to upset him like this? Luckily, Jack's friend Mike was there and came to my defense. Jack can be a pretty persistent guy, and at the time, I didn't have the confidence that I do now. Ironically, it's been this housing experience that has made me as headstrong as I am today. He says that I obviously don't have to reciprocate the feelings that Max has for me. Fast forward through the months, and it's the same kind of behavior. Weird jealous moments and unsettling behavior. I start to notice a shadow under my door at night, like someone is standing outside of it, but brush it off as just me being paranoid. Jack was a very touchy-feely kind of guy, and would often take a nap on my bed with me and his German Shepherd, or we'd sit next to each other on the couch, and Max did not like this one bit. Once, we caught him taking photos of us lying on the couch while we were watching a movie, and at first he refused to delete them. There would be a few times where my phone wasn't there when I thought it was, but I was always losing things like that, so it wasn't a huge red flag for me at the time. He would also ask very sexual and inappropriate questions, even after I had stated that I had been sexually assaulted before, and would continue and even ask about the state of my pubic hair. Eventually, Jack and Mike come to me and say they are concerned. Max has been talking to them about putting cameras in the bathroom to watch me shower. He's been telling them we've been friends for years, and had previously had plans to move into a house together, just the two of us. This is not true. They say they've been keeping an eye on him, and tell me to tell him if anything happens. I go straight to my aunt and landlord, and tell her what's going on. Her and her partner's advice is to pretend I have a boyfriend, and to play porn really loudly so it seems like we're having sex, and maybe he'll leave me alone. I wish I was joking when I said this. In the summer, Evie and I had tickets to go to a music festival in a city that was about a 7-hour drive away. Max was talking about how he'd love to go, blah blah blah, and I said something like, "Oh, you should go." Just a throwaway comment while I was making at dinner. I meant that he should go with his own friends. It was not an invitation for him to come with us. So about 15 minutes later, I walk into the lounge room and he says, all smiles, "I bought a ticket." And I was like, "A ticket?" "Yeah, to the music festival. It's gonna be so fun." I didn't know what to say. I knew if I told him he couldn't come, it would devastate him. So I just text Evie like, "Hey, sorry, but now Max is coming with us." So the day that we leave arrives, and we end up getting on a plane. We decided we didn't want that long drive in the car with Max, and we arrive in the city. We're staying for 4 days, and the music festival isn't until the 3rd day, so we have some time to explore. When we unpack, I realize I've forgotten my phone charger, typical me. Evie has a different phone model, but Max offers to charge it for me when I need it. Evie and I are sharing a room. Max has his own room, and and there's a bathroom in between us. On the first day, Evie and I are kind of disheartened because we wanted to go shopping and do funny 20-year-old gal stuff, and now we've got this weird dude coming with us. We end up just going to the zoo and then going home. This whole time we're kind of texting each other and our friends in the city, trying to figure out what to do and complaining a little bit about Max. That night, when I went to get my phone back from Max, he charged it in his room. Big mistake on my part. He sort of sulkily just threw the phone back to me, and I had this feeling he might have just read my text. At this point, I didn't really care though, because he was getting on my nerves. The second day, Evie and I are both going to spend the day with separate friends in the city. Evie leaves first and I get in the shower. Like I said, the bathroom was between our two doors. There was a door to the lounge room that had a small gap between the bottom of the door and the floor, and there was another door into the master bedroom. Max's room that was sliding and didn't lock. I was worried about this door and keeping an eye on it while I was getting ready for my shower. For some reason, I was feeling very uneasy. The shower was just completely open to the rest of the bathroom. Think a rectangle, with the vanity and toilet being on the left wall in the first half, and the second half was just completely shower. There was no shower curtain or door to hide being if you decided to quickly throw open the sliding door. So I'm showering and washing my hair, and when I notice the shadow at the bottom of the door, I think to myself, God, now this creep is sitting outside the bathroom while I shower. I thought it was his foot, but every time I look at it, the shadow moves away. I think, how can he know if I'm looking at him? So I duck down in the shower to see if I can get a better look. The shadow moves away, but not fast enough. It was his phone. I turn the shower off, get dressed as quickly as I can, and go into our bedroom and lock the door. Evie is very far away by now, but my city friends text me to tell me they're only a few minutes away and will be downstairs soon. I text my aunt to tell her what had happened and go downstairs to meet my friends. On my way out, I put my phone up against the bathroom door gap with the camera open. You could very clearly see the entire bathroom. Max had disappeared into his room, and I wasn't in any mood to confront him. I was shocked. I didn't know what to do. I go out to lunch with my friends and my aunt calls me. She says I should just try and see if there's a video on his phone. She says she can't involve because it's her friend's son. Please keep in mind that she was like my mother at the time. Me having no relationship with my actual mother, I looked to her for all my advice and reassurance. This was her attitude about it really set the tone for how I'd feel and how to handle it. While we're at lunch trying to figure out what I should do next, I get a text from Max saying there's been a family emergency. His brother's in the hospital, and he has to go home straight away. I text my aunt about this. Turns out there's no family emergency. He just knows I've caught him and he's trying to make his escape. I was relieved when I found Evie. I got back to our hotel and he was gone without a trace, except for his music festival ticket, which we gave to another one of our friends. When we get back home, he's not there. He's packed up all of his things and moved out completely. Jack is annoyed at me because he doesn't work and Max pays for a lot of the things. Spoiler alert, and I'll post eventually in the bad roommates thread, Jack is not a good guy. But then he admits that he knew Max was going through my phone whenever I left it behind. I never had a passcode on it before, and he had also been going through my laptop. Same deal, never had a password on it because it wasn't a shared computer and I didn't see the need, and he had read all my messages and found my Tumblr and other accounts. It ended up being a huge headache. My aunt and her partner were annoyed at me for creating a mess with their rental property, and close friends and Jack was annoyed at me for getting rid of his meal ticket. I preserved in the awful environment for a few more months before fleeing home to my dad. So Max, my awful, awful housemate, let's not meet again. When I was accepted into a college that was far from my hometown, I didn't really know anyone else who went there. The college I went to didn't have dorms, but they did have apartments that they suggested students live in due to the proximity to the college. I'm also sure they got a kickback for people who signed up and said they heard about the apartment complex through the college. I was pretty broke at that point, plus I wanted to meet some new people right away, so I charged my apartment largely due to a roommate matching service they had. Basically, you fill out a questionnaire and your demographics and hobbies and interests, and the service would match you with roommates that were compatible for you. Mind you, I chose this particular apartment despite the 1-star reviews I saw across the board online. I mean, they were under new management, and it was only a year lease. It couldn't be that bad. I was matched with another guy in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment. I was so excited to move in and meet him. I moved in a few days after the lease started, probably about 3 weeks before school started, and already began regretting my decision. The apartment was shit and smelled like mold and old cigarettes. In fact, there was a used ashtray on the coffee table when I first got there. When they said it was furnished, I didn't expect it to be exactly like home. My new roommate didn't show up for about a week. When he did finally show up, I found out he was pretty old, about 35, and didn't even go to my school. He was pretty scruffy and smelled like old cigarettes and BO. Eventually, I found out he used to be homeless and took out student loans to afford the application fee and first few months' rent, but he never even enrolled in classes. After the first few months, he stopped paying rent, and it took him about 6 months for the property to finally evict him. In the state I live in, you have to be evicted judicially, and then the courts were bogged down, so it took a little while. While he lived in my apartment, he never changed his clothes. He always would wear the same beat-up looking camo pants and same dirty wife beater. I even offered him some clothes I was getting rid of that would have fit him fine. He was content though, so whatever. He would also have a lot of his old roommates from when he lived at the homeless shelter. It wouldn't be uncommon for me to come home to a random person doing laundry, even when my roommate wasn't home. When I would have my boyfriend over to hang out in my apartment, he would watch us walk from the front door to my room through a crack in his door, just wide enough for me to see the creepiest look on his face, literally every time. Needless to say, he gave me the creeps. A few months after school had started, and after I was noticing his creepy behavior more and more, I was in my room asleep with my boyfriend I was talking to at the time, when I hear a knock on my bedroom door. I looked at the clock and it's about 3 in the morning. I get up to go see whatever it was, and open my door to a random dirty and old naked guy. He says he's a friend of my roommate, and thought my roommate was in my room with me. I flipped the fuck out. Obviously my roommate isn't in my room with me. In order to get into my apartment, and my roommate would have to let him in, and the apartment isn't very big, so it wasn't like my roommate could have gone anywhere else, that his friend wouldn't know where he was. He was either in the living room or in his room. This guy to get the fuck out. Him being butt-ass naked, and let myself into my roommate's room. This is the first time I've been in there, mainly because I have no reason to associate with him, and he's sitting in the corner doing absolutely nothing with his lights off, almost as if he was waiting for me to come in there. I ask him about everything that just happened, and he tries to play dumb like he didn't even know the guy. Someone had to let him in, and it wasn't me. I drop it, because the eviction notices are piling up on the door, and I figure it's just a matter of time until he is gone. In the meantime, the naked guy has came over a few more times to the apartment to do laundry, and I see him when I would get home from class. Finally, my roommate is evicted, and I think I'm done with that at this time, and maybe we'll get another roommate that is actually my age or cool. A few weeks go by that are more or less quiet. Then one day I hear a knock at the front door during the day. When I answer it, I see the random naked dude just standing there, thankfully clothed this time, with a trash bag full of what looked like disgusting laundry. He tells me that my roommate said it was cool if he came to use the washer, and starts to walk forward like he owns the place. I step in front of him and tell him that this isn't his friend's place anymore, and he doesn't live here. I tell him to fuck off. He can't use my washing machine. I close the door and lock it and go back in my room. About 20 minutes later, I keep hearing a random noise from my balcony. I live on the 3rd floor, so I figure it's just a squirrel or a bird out there scratching around. I keep hearing the noises, so I decide to investigate, and I see the homeless guy trying his best to climb up my balcony. I tell him I'm calling the cops, but obviously, by the time they get there, he's gone. That same day, I went to the property manager and asked what kind of roommate matching service works like that, and demanded to get out of my lease. After some heated discussion, I persuaded her that it was in my best interest to just leave. I found a nice 1-bedroom, and never looked back.